got some extra seats here. So, all right. Who wants to sit up here? All right. All right. You want to come and sit up here? Thank you. All right. Excellent. Thank you. No. Just sit on down. There you go. I'll stand. What's your name? Jace. This is Jace, everybody. All right. So come on in, everybody. We're starting just a little bit early because we have a lot to get through, and I want to save a lot of time for your questions because to me that's much more interesting than what I have to say. So all right, we're going to talk about three things. We're going to talk about the Extinction Parade comic book series and the announcement of the new TV deal with that. We're going to talk about the new graphic novel, The Harlem Hellfighters, and Will Smith's movie deal with that. But first, we are going to deal with a giant Brad Pitt-sized elephant in the room. So let's get through that quickly. We don't have a lot of time, so I'll do the quick, short version of it. 2005, right book, World War Z. Oh my God, Leonardo DiCaprio wants to do it. Oh my God, Brad Pitt wants to do it. I love them both. Who's taller? I don't know. Okay. Wow. Brad Pitt wants to do it. Okay, awesome. 6 years later, movie comes out with the same title of the book. So now we'll backtrack a little bit. The reason, one of the main reasons I did not go off on the movie is because I made what's called a conscious choice to sell the movie rights. And when you make a conscious choice to do anything in life, you have to be responsible for the consequences of that choice. Now, if I were, say, Alan Moore, who did not own the rights to Watchmen, and then suddenly they make a movie of it, then I could go hog wild with that wonderful British profanity that Alan Moore does, because that's what happened to Alan. He didn't make a choice. He got a phone call one day, and they were like, "Hi, is this Alan Moore, the awesome legend who made comic books as important to Western civilization as literature?" "Yeah, this is DC and Hollywood, and you can suck it." Click. So that's fine for Alan to go off. Good for him. But for me, made a choice, can't say anything, fine, okay. So I was not involved, didn't write the script, didn't do anything, went to the set for one day, watched a lot of people run around, and it could have been called There's a Sale at Target, because there was no zombies, it was just people running. Okay, so then comes the trailer. Oh, are you guys having a problem hearing me in the back? In the back? Okay, yes, here we go. All right, let's get this out of there. Trailer comes out. And I should say that I didn't even see it online. I saw the trailer on Entertainment Tonight. Now, let's for those who hasn't read World War Z, and it's all right. That's okay. Sir, what's your name? Winston. All right, Winston. Let me tell you. Oh, there. Okay. Now, Winston, you haven't read the book. It's all right. I wrote a book called World War Z, and the whole point of the book to me was I didn't want to just write a zombie adventure that, say, was like a small group of people, because that's been done, and I also didn't want to have like some sort of alpha male hero that saves the world, because I'm not into that, and I didn't want there to be some sort of magic bullet, because that's not how we solve real crises. So it was a series of interviews from survivors all around the world who come together and slowly and painfully reclaim our planet. Okay, so I'm watching Entertainment Tonight, and what do I see? Coming up, zombies attack and only Brad Pitt can save us. So, I get asked a lot from people, like, what's your advice for aspiring writers? And I will tell you this, the most important lesson I can tell any of you if you're going into any sort of artistic field is marry the right person. Because you need a wingman, you need a partner, you need someone who knows you better than you know yourself and will help you make the right choices. So for example, After I saw the trailer, my wife picked up my jaw and put it back on, and she said, "You need to contact Frank Darabont." Now, for those of you who don't know who he is, have you heard of a little TV show called The Walking Dead? All right. Well, what happened was many, many years ago, there was an awesome zombie indie comic called Walking Dead, which we all love, but let's not forget it was a comic book. And we as comic book fans are still in the minority of the human race. Well, this gentleman, Frank Darabont, who made Shawshank Redemption, said, I'm going to turn this into a TV show. Nobody wanted it. Frank fought for it. He said, I'm going to bring in my cast, my crew, my writing staff. I am going to turn this into a phenomenon. And he did. And instead of rewarding him financially, maybe just even giving him a pat on the back, maybe, like what I would have done, give him a statue on the mall in Washington, D.C., next to Martin Luther King. Like, there'd be Dr. King, and then there'd be Frank. AMC fired him. Fired him after season 1. By the way, let him go to Comic-Con in San Diego and talk up season 2 before they fired him. He didn't know. He's like, hey, season 2 is going to be great. Come on down. You're all going to love it. Gets back to the set. They're waiting for him in a classic assassination. So my wife, Michelle, said, look, Frank has been through the ringer many times. He's someone you should talk to. So I wrote to him. I emailed him. And he emails me back and he goes, look, no matter what happens with this movie, you have your book. You have your side of the story. Trust me, it's a lot better than being a screenwriter and having your script mangled and then everyone thinking what's up on the screen is what you intended. I know what I'm talking about, Max. You're in a good place. So then Frank was even cooler. Frank actually sent my email to a friend of his who then wrote back to Frank and said, look, tell your friend Max, number 1, I read World War Z, I liked it. And number 2, tell him that no matter what happens with the movie, so many more people are going to be exposed to his book that never would have. And that's really why we're in this. It's to have our words read. All the best, Stephen King. So then I go, I see the movie, you know, I go there, the big red carpet, you know, everyone's asking me questions. Oh, what do you think? And I'm like, well, I haven't seen it yet. And then there's Fox News, like, what color is blue? And and then I get there and I sit down and there's Mark Forster.
Hello, I'd like to thank all of you for being here. Especially Max Brooks, who wrote this wonderful book that I didn't read. Anyway, here's our film.
So I watched the film and here's what I'm gonna tell you. Once the credits were done, I didn't mind it. You know why? Because it had nothing to do with my book. I thought I was going to be tearing my hair out. I thought I was going to be watching them ruin my story. They didn't ruin my story. They ignored it. So they gave me the gift of emotional distance. I wasn't Stephen King watching The Shining where I'm like, what? Scatman Crothers isn't supposed to get an axe in the chest. He's supposed to save them. What? I wasn't Tolkien's ghost watching The Hobbit. Once the credits were done, I got to watch 28 Days Later on crack. I thought it was great. You know, okay, that's cool. Oh, Brad Pitt making pancakes. Hi, honey. And hi, middle-aged women who fell in love with me a long time ago and are still with me. Who, by the way, that was the core audience. Believe me, that was the greatest work of middle-aged married female pornography I'd ever seen. 50 Shades of whatever ain't got nothing on World War Z. I mean, not only does he have to fly around the world and save the world, he has to call his wife every day to check in. I turned to my wife. I was like, Michelle, did you write this part? So World War Z. So that's where we are. I saw it. Good for them. They're going to make a sequel. The Battle for More Money. Good for you. Moving on. Okay, so that happened. Now I've moved on to other things. Okay, I moved on to a new comic book series that we're 5 issues through called The Extinction Parade. That started because I had written a short story many years ago called The Extinction Parade. William Christensen at Avatar said, hey, how would you like to farm it out and we can develop it into a comic book series? You wouldn't have to do anything. Now, I've never had that offer before, so I was like, hey, cha-ching, or rather in the comic book world, ching. But then I started to get the scripts back, and I realized it was really good, but it wasn't me. So I started making notes, and my notes became rewrites. And then I just said, we have to pull the gears, stop the show. I have to go back and rewrite everything, and I have to be the writer on it. Because if it's got my name on it, it's got to be me. So now let me tell you a little bit of what Extinction Parade is. I should start by saying, how old are you, young man?
11.
All right, you're 11. I'm 41. I'm about to be 42. I know that's like crazy. I should look like Gandalf, right? With the when you get older, you're going to realize that one of the most important things about young life is to have challenges. I didn't really understand that till I was older. Now that I am older, I see the guys my age who, when they were your age, they didn't have to struggle. Everything came easy to them. They were coddled. Everything was cool. They were at the top of the food chain. Now they're my age, and bad stuff's starting to happen, and they have no survival skills. So that's why I wrote Extinction Parade, because I wanted to talk about what it means to have the psychological and the emotional survival skills to deal with crisis. Because I thought, what if there was a species that lived at the top of the food chain, had never needed to struggle, had never needed to adapt, had never failed and learned from their failures? Because let's think about us, right? We're in an artificial cave with an artificial sun. We're the dominant species on the planet. We're not supposed to be. 9/10 of our evolution was this. We were saber-toothed cat bait. We were weak. We weren't very fast, very strong. We didn't have claws, nothing. But we overcame that, and we clawed our way up to the top of the food chain. And that's left us as an extremely resilient species, which is what I talked about in World War Z. So I thought, what if there had been a species that had never had to go through those trials by fire, never felt small or afraid, never felt weak? Oh my God, they're not ready for anything. Well, to me, that species is vampires. Because when I was a kid, everybody wanted to be a vampire. They were cool and sexy. And this is before the sparkling virginal type. You know? So I thought, wow, as resilient as humans would be to a zombie crisis, vampires wouldn't. So what we start is this group of vampires that initially think a zombie outbreak is awesome, because they get to watch human society crumble, and for a while they've been hemmed in by human society. Especially for me, the rise of the middle class has been the worst thing for them. The notion that average citizens have worth, that you can't just kill whoever you want, that everybody now has like a credit card and a job and a boss who's gonna like call the police on Monday if they don't show up. What? That's crazy. So they hate this. So when society starts to crumble, for them it's like Mardi Gras. They're like, oh, this is awesome. And we better kill as much as we can, as fast as we can, before the humans put their house in order. And then one vampire makes the horrible conclusion, the humans are not gonna put their house in order, because we're not talking about the end of human civilization. We're talking about the end of humanity. And when that humanity dies, what are we as parasites going to feed off of? Because we are parasites. We don't invent, we don't produce, we don't contribute, we do nothing. And we have a history of doing nothing. So the Extinction Parade, every issue is a journey of self-discovery of vampires, when they're starting to realize that all their supposed strengths actually turned out to be their weaknesses. Because it was those strengths that lulled them into their arrogant softness. Can they adapt in time before there's no more humans? Can they do what needs to be done? Can they get through all their prejudices and all their arrogance before it's too late? That's the Extinction Parade. So that's what I've been working on. Now, for those of you who read online over the last 48 hours, let me clear up what's been going on. For those of you who haven't, there's been all these articles about how the Extinction Parade is coming to TV. We don't know that. There is a production company which has optioned the television rights, so we're going to get together, we're going to try to pitch it around to networks, see who likes it, and if they do, then it will come to TV. So that's where we are right now with the Extinction Parade. Now, my next and final project I'll talk about before I open the floor to questions, I've been working on for 15 years. I started working on at the same time I started working on Zombie Survival Guide. And it's not zombies, it's not vampires, it's a true story. In 1917, during the Great War, the war to end all wars, or as you up here call it, the war the British dragged us into, the United States government set up one of its own units to fail. And that's because they were African American. They gave them poor training, they gave them poor equipment. They sent them to the Deep South hoping there would be a race riot, so that then it would be disgraced and not be sent overseas. And when that proved futile, they did send them overseas to dig ditches. And then when they protested, they gave them to the French. And why that was the final insult was because when the United States entered the war, the British and French armies were like, yes, American replacements. And General Pershing said, he was our commander-in-chief, he said, absolutely not. As Supreme Allied Commander of the American Expeditionary Force, I will tell you American forces have to fight under a unified American command, under an American flag, under an American general, ... except for the black guys, you can have them. So they were given to the French, hoping that they would either fail in combat or never even see combat. Well, the truth is they spent more time, 191 days on the front line, longer than any other American unit of any color. The first American war hero of the Great War was one of these guys, Henry Johnson, who took on 20 Germans with a knife. The entire unit ended up winning the French Croix de Guerre. And at one point during the Kaiser's offensive to take Paris, there was nothing in that sector between the Germans and Paris but these guys. Oh, and as a side note, they also introduced jazz to France. Their regimental band was led by a guy named James Reese Europe, who was a mega celebrity of the time. He walked into any club, any restaurant in New York, people would just stand up and cheer and get autographs. He was a mega star, and he gave all that up to take his music to show the Europeans that we as Americans were a nation and had our own culture. By the way, he also said, when the shooting starts, I put down my baton and I get in combat. That's unheard of nowadays. That would be like Kanye going to Afghanistan. That is the story of the Harlem Hellfighters. Now, one last footnote about it is, as a final sort of insult to them, the American government wouldn't let them march off to war. And that's the most basic honor you give to soldiers. Basic. A soldier, when he puts on or she puts on a uniform and they march off to maybe get killed, they have to know that their country's behind them. They have to know that they're loved and they're supported. And so in New York City, all the New York National Guard units formed into what was called the Rainbow Division. And they all marched off to war, except for these guys as New York National Guardsmen. They were not allowed to march in the Rainbow Division because they were told, and I'm not kidding, black is not a color of the rainbow. That's how much they were humiliated. Well, they ended up coming home as heroes despite everything the US government did to try and stop them. They came home to a victory parade up Fifth Avenue in New York where over 1 million New Yorkers of every color turned out to welcome them home. That's the story of the Harlem Hellfighters. Yeah, I know. Now, 15 years ago, I tried writing it as a script, as a movie. Nobody wanted it. And I was about to give up. I was, because when you're a young writer, you blame yourself. You think, well, they don't want it because it's me. And I was ready to shelve it for good, and I had one final meeting with LeVar Burton. Yeah. And he said, this is a great story, you shouldn't give up. And then he said something that I don't even think he knows how important that was to me. He said, there are more than a few Harlem Hellfighters scripts making the rounds in Hollywood right now, but yours comes closest to the truth. Now, let me backtrack and say that when you grow up dyslexic, and you have a horrible learning disability, and you don't get along in school, and you have to struggle every day and get tutored every night just so you can get a passing grade, and then Geordie LaForge tells you you've done your homework? Wow. There is no greater compliment I could have gotten. So because of him, I never gave up, and I stuck with it. And finally, when I got into writing comic books, I realized this is a great way to tell a visual story without having to worry about the economic bullcrap that is Hollywood, because that's the first thing Hollywood does. They say, well, what's this going to cost? And they go, oh my God, just black people? No, that's cute. Anyway. So I thought comics, perfect. Now I had just done World War Z at the time. Random House was very excited. They were waiting for my next book, and they said, what's it going to be? Hoping I was going to say, World War Z Part 2, The Search for More Money. And I was like, no! I want to do a true story from World War I that no American has ever heard of, in graphic novel form, starring black people. And I heard something on the phone. I go, what is that? They go, oh, sorry, a pin just dropped. Now, because I had hit so hard with World War Z, they thought, well, let's give it to him, kind of the way they let Scorsese make Kundun, so then he would give them Casino. I think they were like, well, let's let him do this, so when he does come up with World War Z Part Cash, then we can have it and he'll like us. So I teamed up with Kanan White, an amazing artist, and through Avatar. I don't know if you guys know Avatar. Avatar and I are also doing Extinction Parade together. Now, let me just say one thing about why I love Avatar comics so much. It's because of this man, William Christensen, who is Avatar Comics. And you'll see him if you go down to the Avatar booth. He looks like Peter Griffin. And I remind him of that constantly. But I call him the last shoemaker in a world of shoe factories, because so many comic book companies now are essentially becoming pre-movie companies, and all they want is their movie deal. And so they're designing their comic books so it will fit better into a Hollywood format. William doesn't do that. William is a genuine comics nerd, and he loves working with people like Garth Ennis and Alan Moore, and he loves discovering talent, and he loves the comic book, and he doesn't care if it gets made into a movie. The only reason he likes those is that it brings attention to the comic book, but that's what he cares about. The man's a freaking paper nerd. He likes to tell me about the paper it's printed on. I'm like, William, I love comics too, but just the paper. He's like, no, this is the new special DRX5, made from trees fed with the milk of the Khaleesi. And so I teamed up with them. Now, remember, the reason I did a comic book was I had turned my back on Hollywood. Screw it. You know what? Enough with you, Hollywood. I'm going to do it as a comic book. I'm happy. 2 weeks before the book comes out, I get a call. Will Smith's production company wants to try to turn it into a movie, and they want me to write the first draft of the script. So that's where we are with Harlem Hellfighters, and that's where we are with Extinction Parade, and that's where we were with World War Z. So now I'm going to open the floor to questions. If anyone has them, or if anyone needs to rush off and see Sons of Anarchy like these young men. That's all right, go, no, yeah, that's fine. No, go, run, give them my regards. Oh, thank you. I seem to remember many girls saying that as they left.
I love you, though. We can still be friends.
Anyone have any questions? Yes. Yes. Let me talk about this for a little while. One other advantage of the World War Z movie getting made is finally Random House put up the cash for me to make a complete audiobook. Because I should tell you, see, usually what they do with audiobooks are like the bastard stepchildren of the book industry. They really don't want to acknowledge them, and they give them almost no money, so they usually hire one guy to do 1,000,000 little voices, okay? Because that's cheap. You can only hire one guy for the day. And it'll be things like, Comrade General, the tanks are stalling and NATO is counterattacking, said the general. That's what they do. Now, I wanted to do the World War Z audiobook with a full cast, because also, being dyslexic, I grew up on audiobooks. I actually probably wouldn't have passed high school had my mother not taken my reading list every year and brought it to the Braille Institute for the Blind and had those books read onto audio cassettes so I could listen to them. So I've always loved audio cassettes, and I've always wanted to do it as a big audiobook. So they said, we'll meet you halfway. So we did 6 hours. And for years and years, people came up to me and they said, oh, when are you going to do an extended? I said, I don't know. So it was Random House. And they finally said, yes, we will do it. So I got a chance to cast all the other voices that had been left out. And I wrote to everyone, and I called people that I could. We got Nathan Fillion, who, by the way, goes to such a dark place. You're gonna be like, this is not the guy from Firefly. And this certainly ain't the guy from Slither. Believe me, this guy goes dark. You will not recognize Simon Pegg. Simon Pegg, who does an American accent. Oh yeah, we got Denise Crosby and Bruce Boxleitner and Jerry Ryan and Masioka. We just went on and on. Now, some people I had to really reach for. And like I said, I wrote to everyone personally. I don't know if you've heard of an actor, F. Murray Abraham. He won the Oscar for Amadeus. Now, I was told I couldn't get him. They said, look, he does audiobooks, and he don't roll out of bed unless it's a small fortune because he's that in demand. So I wrote to him, and I just told him how I felt from the heart. I said, Mr. Abraham, when I was a kid, my mother bought me the audiobook of Red Storm Rising. And you read all those parts, and you were amazing. And you showed me how good an audiobook could be. And I probably would not be doing this project right now had you not helped inspire me. So he wrote back, and he's like, I'll do it. So that was amazing. And I got to be in the booth with some people, and everybody was so good to work with. Common the rapper, God bless him, he reads the dog handler part. And as I'm reading, I realized, oh my God, Random House has Xeroxed the wrong book. They Xeroxed the earlier version where the words are different. So we literally had to like Xerox my book so he could read it. He was like, hey, it's all right, no problem. I'm like, oh my God, thank you. So that is the World War Z audiobook. It's now full. You can't say unabridged because some words in the original ones were edited. So legally you can't say unabridged, but it is complete. It is the complete 12-hour World War Z audiobook. Anyone else? Yes.
Well, with Bruce Campbell being here, can you tell me how Max Brooks would out-survive him, other than the fact that his weapon runs on gasoline and bullets?
Out-survive him in what?
In a zombie.
Dude, we're talking about two different enemies. My zombies are slow and dumb and walking viruses. His are the Book of the Dead. So you need the Book of the Dead. Now, if you read the Book of the Dead to my zombies, they wouldn't care. Anyone else? You have one? Yes.
What inspired you to write the zombie survival guide?
All right, this young man asked me, what inspired me to write the zombie survival guide? Fear. I was very scared of zombies when I was a kid. I was terrified. I'll tell you. All right, you know what? I'll tell you guys how I got into zombies. I've told this before, and of course, it has to be the 11-year-old kid who asked me this. You're 11. When you turn 12, maybe 13, strange new things will happen to your body. And the first thing you should know is it's completely normal. Jesus still loves you. It's okay. But you may start to notice girls in a way you've never noticed before. I like that his mom just said that. With pride, no less. Oh, he's way ahead of you. Well, all right, when I was a little bit older than you, there was but here's one thing he doesn't know, okay? In his generation, he can see what he wants to see on the computer and on his phone, whereas when I was his age, we had a new rating in movies called PG-13. Now, PG-13 meant that the young women could just take off their shirts at any opportune moment, and it had nothing to do with the movie. We had movies like Police Academy and Stripes, and suddenly there was a shower scene. So when I was your age, I used to watch something called cable TV. My parents would be out, and I would be waiting like a sniper, like, dug in, waiting to see something awesome. And sometimes it didn't work. One time I read the cable guide, and there was a movie called Hot to Trot, and I was like, yeah. And it was a talking horse movie with John Candy and Bobcat Goldthwait. But one time, I was watching, and there was a woman who was completely awesome from the neck down. And I thought, I mean, just Allah be praised. I was so happy. But then I realized that she had wandered, as I had wandered, into a zombie cannibal movie in which they used it was Italian, so they used real documentary footage of cannibalism in New Guinea. Yeah. So when you're 12 or 13 and your biggest worry is hair growing in weird places, which are actually not weird, it's totally normal. And that's your biggest worry, and suddenly you're watching flesh being eaten, and you don't know where the documentary ends and the zombie stuff begins. That leaves a mark. So I was what we call traumatized, and I always used to think, what if there was a zombie outbreak? But I didn't want it to be like the movies, because what I understood growing up in the movies, where both my parents were famous. My mom was an actress named Anne Bancroft, and my dad's a guy named Mel Brooks. And so I grew up in Hollywood, and I know how movies are made. And what I learned about movies being made is they don't necessarily do what's right in a movie or what's educational. They do what's cool and what's fun to watch. And so I realized in all the zombie films I watched, everybody made bad choices, and none of it was really practical. I thought, well, how would I really survive? Now, growing up in Southern California, I was always ready for earthquakes. We had earthquake drills, and so survivalism was part of our culture, disaster preparedness, I should say. When you say survivalism now, it's like those doomsday prepper losers, who actually want this to happen. Did you see that show, Doomsday Preppers? There was one guy, he was like, I'm gonna build myself a spider hole. Yeah, and they gonna take over my house, and I'm gonna creep out of my spider hole every night. I'm gonna come and kill one of them every night. Yeah. And I realized that guy's not waiting for the apocalypse. He's legitimately going to sell his house to somebody, and then he's going to come back. So I realized if there was a zombie apocalypse, most people would probably die from things that are not zombie related. They'd die from dehydration. They would die from exhaustion. They'd die from starvation. So I thought, I'm going to write a book for me about how you'd survive a zombie attack. So that's how I wrote Zombie Survival Guide. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
So I think you mentioned that Harlem Hellfighters is being cut by Will Smith.
Yes.
So this might be an awkward question, but can you keep Jaden away from that?
What is your problem with Jaden? She's awesome. Did you see Low Down Dirty Shame? Did you see Nutty Professor? She was great. Look, I think Will Smith married well. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they marry a one-legged model that hops into their life and hops out with half their money. What's? Oh, the son? Oh, look, the son who am I to judge the son of a famous man? I hope he is in it. And I hope he is awesome in it. And I hope everyone says, wow, what a great performance. In fact, sons can be even more talented than their fathers. Anyone else? Yes, in the way back. Yes, Dr. Baltar. Look at him. Doesn't he look like Baltar? I mean, other than the cap, but your hair, and yes, sorry, go on, Dr. Baltar. Are you kidding? Was I expecting? No. I wrote it for me. I didn't even expect it to be published. I don't expect anything to be successful that I do. Look, if I had any inkling of what is successful in popular culture, you think they would have fired me off Saturday Night Live? I'd still be there, which, by the way, for those of you who don't know, yes, I was hired, Saturday Night Live. I was like, yay, hooray, made it. It's August of 2001 in New York. What could possibly go wrong? Yes. So we survived that. We survived anthrax in the building, but they didn't survive me. So eventually I got the call. By the way, I was fired from SNL on my honeymoon. Somehow they ran a transatlantic cable to Manihi Atoll in the middle of the South Pacific, and I just got,
Hello, Max. It's Lauren Michaels. You can suck it.
So I don't know what is successful. I don't know. I write from my heart. For God's sakes, I just wrote a World War I story that's a true story. It took me 15 years to research when everybody told me nobody wants it. So clearly I'm stubborn and dumb. Yes.
My question has to do with World War Z. It has to do with the fact that you sold the movie rights to Brad Pitt and company. Does that mean that there's no hope that the great story that you wrote, and I mean, it was one of the best books
thank you.
I've ever read, will never get reproduced the way that you had meant and you had written it? Because I just loved every part of it. There's not a part that
Oh, thank you.
I read it 3 times, and I don't read books twice.
Well, thank you. Look, you never know. You never know. We shall see. Look, they're making a sequel. Maybe it'll be closer to the book. I don't know. Maybe it'll be The Search for More Pancakes. I don't know. I'm just happy that I've got my book and nobody can mess with it. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, in the hat.
Is there any chance that you still have the rights to your book, maybe turned into a comic book or a longer?
Oh yeah, I could totally do that, but the thing is, like, I would want to include more stories. See, I don't want to just milk the cow. Look, if I were a better businessman, I'd be on, not only would I be on World War Z Part 7, I would be farming out a whole line of World War Z Jerry Lane action books. I mean, that would just be like a money tsunami. And sure, I could make a ton of cash if I just converted it into a graphic novel, but I want to give readers more. I don't ever want to be accused of just milking it. I want to know when you buy something with my name on it, you know that I've busted my ass. And that's really important, which includes putting more stories in. I'm not saying I won't do it, but right now my plate's obviously kind of full. I mean, for example, like for Harlem Hellfighters, the research I did with that, when you stack the books up, it's 4 feet high. 4 feet high worth of books, and a foot of those books is literally just art that I had to give to Kane White so he could make sure all the illustrations are historically accurate. Because when you're doing a historical comic book, you got to make sure you do your homework. Hairstyles, clothing, weapons, uniforms, buttons, oh my God. So that takes a lot of work. And plus, I've got, I think, 10 more issues of Extinction Parade to write. Which is, and like I said, going back, this is really, really important for me to get the psychology of Extinction Parade correct. You know, the blood, the gore, that's fine, but that's not why I wrote it. I didn't even write it about zombies and vampires. I write it about struggle and about the pitfalls of privilege. You know, as a parent with a 9-year-old, I see what's happening to kids. I don't know about in this country, but in my country, you know that when 2 kids' soccer teams play each other, they both get a trophy. So nobody gets their feelings hurt. And now, as a 40-year-old, I know people who are hiring 20-somethings who can't take criticism. They've never taken criticism. When I was in my 20s, I got my ass kicked by just mean bosses and jealous coworkers and crappy jobs, get coffee, answer the phone. Oh my God, I was working on a sitcom as a production assistant once, and thank God this didn't happen to me. It happened to my fellow production assistant. The star of the show, she was like, give me a cup. Here. That's your 20s. But now there's a whole crop of 20-somethings, at least in my country, who are just like, hey, I've never been talked down to. I've never been yelled at. I've never had to be told to go do my work again. There are 20-somethings going to job interviews with their parents. Yes! There are 20-somethings, there are teens in college who make their parents call the professors to get them a higher grade. God, let the Chinese not know about this. Because there will be tanks rolling up Constitution Avenue. I heard they remade Red Dawn. I haven't seen it. Maybe in this new version of Red Dawn, they call their parents. It's struggle. It's getting your ass kicked. It's life being hard. There's a great expression I read. You want to make a man's life hard, make a boy's life easy. That's my vampires. Spoiled and coddled and believing themselves to be invincible. And then slowly, issue by issue, they come up against their limitations. Oh my God, The humans that we've been looking down on are actually what we're trying to be, because they're the ones who have a better chance of surviving than us. So that philosophy, that psychology is what keeps me going. And so I can't just phone it in. Anyone else? Yes, in the way back. Yes, Miss Purple. Oh, I'm sorry, you're waiting for what, the Orphan Black or... I will say hello to my dad. Thank you. And because I'll tell you a quick story about my dad. When my little boy was about 18 months, he was just learning to talk. And my father would come over. My dad has this little cute trick he does, like on talk shows, where he puts a comb underneath his mouth, his nose. It looks like a Hitler mustache. And he goes, "Heil Hitler, Heil Hitler." My son loved it. He thought it was just so cute. And he was giggling. He didn't know. He was giggling. And my wife's like, "I'm not sure if that's the best thing that we should be doing." And I was like, "Honey, come on. It's a joke. I mean, what's the worst that can happen?" Well... 2 weeks later, we're all watching the History Channel, and Adolf Hitler's on there, and my little boy goes, "Grandpa!" Hitler has been banned from our house, and my dad is still trying to undercut me. My son just did his oral report about notable Americans, FDR, and he was rehearsing for us. Nothing to fear but fear itself. And then he just went, "Whoa, my polio!" And he fell on the floor, and he goes, oh, I have eye polio now. "Oh, my wheelchair went off the cliff. Oh, dead, womp womp." And I'm like, "No, you can't do that for your class." And my dad's like, "Why can't he? It's gold. This is great. This is hysterical." Any other non-Hitler related Mel Brooks questions? Yes, in the back with the hat.
Is he possibly working on any more projects still?
My dad? He's doing a one-man show in a week at the Geffen. So let's check it out. Anyone else? Yes.
One of my favorite stories in your book is about Paul Rediker.
Yes.
I was wondering what your inspiration was.
My inspiration for Paul Rediker was two things. Number one, I based it on two historical facts. First, when the Soviet Union was invaded by the Nazis, they pulled back to the Ural Mountains, and they left everybody there at the mercy of the Nazis. Anybody who couldn't run, that was the end of them. So that was pretty Rediker. But also, when I was a kid, I saw a documentary of kids my age and your age, white kids learning how to shoot, being taught mandatory gun practice for when the black hordes would rise up and eventually kill them. And I thought if there was ever a sick, paranoid society that could produce a Paul Rediker, it would totally be apartheid South Africa. So that's where the Rediker plan came from. Anyone else? Yes.
Hate to go back to your dad again, but I'm just curious. Did you have any struggles, particularly writing stuff involving zombies, more horror-related thriller, just because your dad was such a famous comedian?
Did I have struggles? No, I wrote it. Did the world have struggles accepting it? Have you seen what section of the bookstore Zombie Survival Guide is in? It's in the frickin' humor section. And I didn't make my job any easier because when I happened to be on SNL, I happened to win an Emmy. So, Random House didn't know what to do. So they're like, "Oh, from the Emmy Award-winning SNL son of Mel Brooks, this funny parody of zombies." And nobody knew who I was, so I'm sure everybody had this preconceived notion, oh, here's Mel Brooks's brat, and he's pissing on something that we love. And I had to go do, once again, my wife was like, "You need to pound the pavement, you need to talk to Fangoria, you need to start doing interviews, and you need to convince zombie nerds out there you are one of them. You are not making fun of them." And she's like, "Believe me, I've had to live with you and hear about zombie plans. You better get it out there." And the truth is, look, I'm always having to disprove. Because when I wrote Zombie Survival Guide, I had to disprove SNL. When I wrote Harlem Hellfighters, I had to disprove zombies because I've hit so hard in the zombie genre. Everybody loves my zombie work, so they're expecting another zombie book. No, I'm going to write a true story about a group of American heroes of which I believe their worst crime was not their humiliations and the beatings and the Jim Crow. The worst thing was history burying them. You know, I had a professor who once said to me, the worst crime that white people ever did against black people was to bury their history, bury their accomplishments. And that really struck me because I thought, wow, you can't face the future unless you have the confidence of the past. That's the same thing with Extinction Parade. As a Jew, I can tell you half our holidays are spent reminding ourselves what we've accomplished in the past so we can face the future. And so I thought, I love this story and it needs to be told. And hopefully people will love it. But I guarantee you there's going to be a lot of zombie fans out there that are going to look at this thing and be like, where the hell are the zombies? Come on, zombie boy, where are the zombies? Yes. Yes. So my favorite authors, all right, Tom Clancy. One of my favorites, being dyslexic, I didn't pick up a book and just buy a book and start reading until I was 16. And Red October was amazing because Red October got rid of all that Ian Fleming crap about macho men going around the world and having sex and not getting venereal diseases and gadgetry. Tom Clancy was real. Here's how a real Russian sub works. Here's how the KGB works. Here's naval tactics. I left that book. I left all his books feeling smarter than when I went in. And that's what I try to do. I hope people learn as well as are entertained. So I love Clancy. I love Farley Moat. Oh my God, have you guys ever read Lost in the Barrens? Wow. I'm going to go, that's one of those books where I'm just like, I was so sad when it was over. I'm like, I'm going to give it a year, try to forget it, and then go back and reread it. I mean, it was amazing. It was like Minecraft before there was Minecraft. These two young kids lost up in the Arctic, and they have to learn how to survive the winter. Wow. I love Hunter S. Thompson. Oh my God. I loved Homer. I loved his story of the Iliad and of the Odyssey. I read the Odyssey when I was camping in Greenland by myself. Really smart. Don't go camping in Greenland by yourself. See? I did you a service. You know, I love any author where the passion is obvious, and that's what's so important. And I don't care if my authors stick to the same genre. I don't care what they do. But when I feel an author is just trying to crank out a buck, when they've hit and they just keep going, that's when I sort of tune them out. I'm like, that's, you know, whatever. If you're not into it, why should I be into it? But when an author writes something and you just feel their passion coming through, oh my God, I love it. So I think we have time for one more question. Yes, sir.
What's your phase one of your personal zombie survival?
Oh, you want to know what my super secret zombie survivor plan is?
Yes.
Perfect question. Next question. Anyone else? One quick, yes, young man.
Why don't go camping by yourself in Greenland?
Here's why you don't go camping. Good question. Good question. Because you could die. Because, what's your name, young man? Liam, the reason we created societies initially, when we were all cave people, you know, millions of years ago, or if you live in my South, thousands of years ago, the reason we created societies is so we could help each other and we could specialize. And so if somebody falls and breaks their ankle, they don't have to crawl a mile to the river to get a drink of water. Somebody could help them. Or if they get sick, somebody could hunt for them. You know, we can't survive on our own. We need each other. One of the greatest survival mechanisms, these weak little monkeys that we are, what we created was the community. And that's another thing in Extinction Parade, why my vampires don't even have a community. They don't think they need it. They're all what's called narcissists. It means like they're all in it for themselves. And they think that's cool. I'm in it for myself. They don't realize that humans band together because we need each other. And when we're together, we can do anything. And when we're alone, we can die. Liam, thank you for closing out the night. Everyone, I'm signing over at the Avatar booth right now. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you and enjoy the rest of the show.